Hi, this week we're working on a project called Text as Shape, where we are exploring the design principles, positive, negative, scale, and texture. And for this week, we're going to be kind of diving into potentially working digital. So you might want to think about how you want to lay out your compositions because you're probably going to want software that has a type tool or a text tool. In the past, some students have sketched out their final designs, but you just have to be really cognizant of presentation. And so it is much easier to use a design software like Illustrator or Photoshop or a freeware, and I can recommend a freeware for you. But basically, what you're doing is you're starting out with the concepts, positive, negative, scale, and texture. And you're going to make 3 different compositions, one composition for each. So if you think of the idea of scale, what you want to do is using text and numbers, you want to communicate the idea of scale. Texture, using text and numbers, you want to communicate the idea of texture, and positive, negative, using text and numbers, you want to communicate the idea of positive, negative. You're going to start out with sketches though. So the first thing you're going to do, let me just go and show you some examples here. First thing you're going to do is sketch everything out. And you want to create 30 thumbnail sketches. And so I would recommend creating your 30 little boxes first and then labeling positive, negative, scale, and texture so that you can communicate which ones represent which. And then you're going to use these little boxes as frames and you're going to explore the ideas. And you don't have to spend a ton of time on your sketching. They can be kind of quick. They can be a little bit sloppy. They don't have to be perfect. So I don't expect every little thumbnail to look amazing. What I do want you to do is brainstorm and think of different ideas for the concept. And then ideally, when you're done sketching and doing your brainstorming, your 30 little thumbnails, you go back to texture and you pick the thumbnail that you think best represents the idea of texture. And then you would create a final design based on that thumbnail. So here's just some examples of student thumbnails. Some of them are more sloppy and it's fine. Some of them are really precise. And so it just depends on how you want to work. But don't overthink it. This brainstorming is a time when you just want to let your mind explore different ideas. And so you don't want to be too concerned with how these look. You mostly want to be concerned with the process and the ideation that you're going to be doing while you're brainstorming. So once you're done with your thumbnails, you're going to go in and you're going to choose one of the thumbnails to turn into a final design. And this is where you're probably going to start using a software. In my labs, we use Illustrator, which is really simple to use with the text tool. So in Illustrator, you basically have your frame already there, and you designate a frame size, and then you can grab your type tool and you can type in letter shapes, and then you can use your black arrow to scale these letter shapes or to rotate these letter shapes. Anything that goes off of the white artboard will not be part of the final design. It basically gets cut off when you save this as a PDF or print it. And so you just kind of have fun with the space. So what I would do is just create simple letter shapes, fill the space, and try and replicate what I had drawn on my thumbnail. And you can use different fonts. So Illustrator has a lot of different types of fonts that you can explore, but I would really recommend just keeping this pretty simple and using just a very simple, clean sans serif font. Don't type out words, and I don't think you need to create elaborate real world symbols. For example, in the past, people have created pictures of landscapes using the type as sort of these building blocks. I would keep it abstract because it makes it a little bit simpler for you, and then you can just explore the concept without getting kind of distracted by some imagery that you're hoping to create. And keep the font simple. So Illustrator is really easy to use, and if you need some help with Illustrator, let me know. Or if you're in the lab, I can help you in person, or the TA can help you. But if you don't have access to Illustrator, this software was recommended to me. It's called Gravit Designer, and the URL for it is www.designer.io, and it's a cross-platform tool that kind of is very similar to Illustrator or Photoshop, but simpler to use. And it's freeware, so it doesn't cost any money. So this is something that you could explore, download it, and see what you think. It might be a really good alternative to Illustrator, especially if you don't want to spend the money to get an Adobe subscription. Or it could just be a starter, something that you start out with and then transition into Illustrator. So let me know what you think of this, and I'll send you an email just letting you know what the URL is. If I know it's hard to see right here, but so that it's easy for you to just check it out and look at it. Okay, so going back to our examples here. So you're going to do your 3 final designs and you're going to have fun with it. So all of the ones I'm showing you right now represent texture. So texture can be a lot of different things. It can be a repeating pattern. It can be a really precise, interesting pattern. So just think about that. It can vary. It doesn't all have to be totally visually consistent. I would recommend filling the frame for texture because I think you have to have a lot of repetition to really get this idea or sensation of texture. So filling the frame is always kind of the right solution for this particular principle. And then we'll look at scale. So scale is the idea of really small to really large. So there's so many different ways that you can communicate this. So have fun with it. Use the whole frame for this, but in scale, you could actually utilize the negative or the white space a little bit and have fun with that. It doesn't have to, all the letters don't have to necessarily repeat and fill the whole frame. So you can have a lot of fun with that white space and where you place your letters. You can use a black background or a white background. That's totally up to you. So in Illustrator, you basically just have to create a shape and fill the background, and then you put white letters on top, or it's a white background automatically and you put black letters on top. So either or is fine. And positive negative is probably the trickiest one to accomplish, but in this one, you really want to go for sort of space ambiguity. You want to think about that negative space and that positive space and maybe try and make it somewhat ambiguous. What is positive? What is negative? That seems to be the best solution for this particular exercise. So filling the frame with a couple of letters sometimes does that. So experiment with that a little bit. This is one of my favorites, the E and the N. And so you can have a lot of fun with this sort of play on positive, negative. It's probably the most complicated one to do, but in the past we've had some really clever, fun ideas. So think about that one. It might be your biggest challenge. So go forward, brainstorm first, and then start to design your 3 final solutions. And just let me know if you have any questions, and I'm happy to show you a lot of examples if you need it. I'll send you this PDF, for example, and you can look at them.